Welcome to Ryan Runs. I am Ryan Miller, and I was going to say forgive a bit of the mess around here, but then I realized the only thing showing on camera is this little corner. So if you could see my entire desk, I would have to apologize. Let's put it that way. In fact, 'tis the season because I've already started to garner some of my gifts from my family. So for anybody listening, and apologies for anybody listening, I've been trying to do better about either explaining or making all this a little bit more podcast friendly, but I was holding up a sign that my daughter got me that looks a lot like a caution sign, but says fart zone, enter at your own risk. So 'tis the season, like I said, and 'tis the season for going to Idaho also is partly why everything's such a mess around here, because I figured instead of what I sometimes do, which is lug a lot of electronic equipment to Idaho where I can produce some sort of shows or record some sort of podcasts. In fact, last year, actually might have been still this year, I have no idea, but I did an episode from Idaho of Ryan Runs even, so you can see what that would look like if that were the case. I thought maybe instead I would bank a bunch of footage and just have plenty to edit while I was in Idaho this time around. So we'll see if that works out. If it does, you'll get this episode at some point. But also I'm going to try and record a new episode of Chasers, which I am all written up on. It is ready to go, episode 4. And maybe an episode of gameplay, although that is feeling like less of a possibility as time goes on. Speaking of this cluttered corner, here, it's a very tiny square of the frame, people listening. I don't think I've played enough of the games I need to complete that episode. So that's looking like less and less of a thing, although I did get the trailer out. So if you're wondering what this new series called Gameplay is going to be, and haven't heard any of the other places where I've talked about it, that trailer is out there to have a look at. So maybe I'll figure something out while I'm in Idaho as far as that goes, because I did promise within the next week or two. So I want to stay as honest as possible around here. But that also doesn't mean I don't have anything to talk about for this show, because I've got something on the wall again, which again, apologies to the podcast people. I've slowly been hanging things on the wall, and while I think I've been able to explain those pretty well, that you probably got a picture, I haven't explained the actual pictures real well. So this week, it is a poster. In fact, I've got to explain it to everybody in this case because it is a poster that is very dutifully reflecting the light above. And that's not, I'm pretty bad at lighting. I'm more of an editor when it comes to all the videography work I do. I shy away from lighting. I will spend thousands of dollars on a camera that does really well in natural light to avoid such a thing. So that is not a light I put up. That is my garage light. But given how I tend to light things, that's probably about the amount of expertise I would have. So I will explain that to everybody. And for those watching, I will also put up a better picture of it in the bottom corner as I do. But it is a poster that I got from the concert I went to in 1999. I looked this up. I still have the ticket, also in the corner now. March 3rd of 1999 in, I always say San Luis, but I think the actual township is called Edna. At Trinity Hall was the name of the venue, where I saw Lagwagon and the Bouncing Souls and All Systems Go. Apologies to them. I don't remember them at all. But I do remember Lagwagon, and I especially remember the Bouncing Souls. That I probably didn't go there to see just them. A lot of times I go to see the opening bands. I mentioned this when it came to Blink. I don't know how many times I've seen Blink 182, but it's not because I wanted to. And I'm happy to report that after going back, or even just, it continues to happen. I run into their songs in one way or the other, and now it's more of a curiosity, like, let's listen to this Blink song and see if, because I didn't like them growing up. I never latched onto them like a lot of my friends did. I don't necessarily know why. I guess if I had to think about it, I mean, when I listened to music in high school, I was a super snob, like not even just when it came to punk music, which the next thing I hang on my wall will go deeper into that history. But even when it came to punk music, it was like if it didn't go fast enough, I wouldn't listen to it. You know, like there were tracks on albums that I would just skip because they didn't go fast enough, you know. So even when it came to some of that music, I think Blink I largely reacted against because it did sound like McDonald's does pop punk music. It wasn't even like yes, I railed against pop punk, even though one of my earliest bands was Green Day, you know, but when it came to Blink, it just sounded too, like I said, not even just pop punk, but like McDonald's does pop punk. So all apologies to Blink, I guess, but happy to report that upon re-listening to some of their music, still don't care for them all that much. So this is not one of those cases. I was plenty into Lagwagon and plenty into the Bouncing Souls both, but probably at this point was already kind of edging towards the Bouncing Souls as one of my favorite bands, even in 1999. So I went to this show, and I'm pretty sure it was after, because otherwise that poster would be more in tatters than it is even. But on the way out, I saw the bassist, Papillon, as signed right there, adding to this poster, it's kind of a wreath around it, and the Oi there at the bottom. So very quickly, I think after he had left, yeah, because it's not like I approached him or spoke with him at all, tore it off the wall and took it home with me. So that's been a prized possession for I don't know how long. Finally got it framed there, which that brown around the edges isn't necessarily there. It's just that the frame isn't the correct size. And now I'm explaining it too much. But I've also spoken probably at length about the Bouncing Souls. I think it was episode, I wrote it down because I had to go back and look, and it happened later than I thought. Episode 9 of Ryan Runs, where I started to use one of their songs to open this show and kind of talked about some of their meaning to me. And it's one of those ethereal things, you know, like we make choices, we grow up with things, and it just happens to be something that we attach to. With the Bouncing Souls, I can always point to their lyrics, even just their early stuff, which I was lucky enough to come in on, I don't know how long after it was released, but I feel like before Maniacal Laughter came out at least, which seems pretty early on. But with the Bouncing Souls and their early stuff, it was very raw, of course, but also not that fast, really type of punk that I just talked about. So it was kind of a departure for me to get into them in the first place. And then Maniacal Laughter came out, and that was just insane. You know, that's a bona fide classic. But then Hopeless Romantic is actually the one I wanted to talk about, because when that came out, that very much went against a lot of everything else I was listening to. To say that it was kind of slower is doing it a disservice. It was just such a different album from pretty much everything else I was listening to, and I loved it. It's another classic. And I think probably at that point was when me and the Bouncing Souls were just never going to separate in one way or the other, even though they've been through plenty of changes. It just, anything they put out from then on was gold to me, even including the gold record when that came out, which was also kind of a departure. They've done lots of different stuff. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, even though sometimes you can't really put your finger on why you connect, I feel like it's a real short leap to see why the Bouncing Souls would have appealed to me personally as a freak, a nerd, and a romantic, as you could say. So that's the Bouncing Souls. It probably won't be the last time I talk about them, but that's why that poster is there. The other thing I wanted to talk about this week has to do with a long-time dream I've had of purchasing a legitimate drum kit. And I finally did that, even if it's an electronic drum kit. And I know nobody's surprised by this. They're like, oh, you finally purchased a real life thing and it's an electronic version of that thing. Of course I did. But it's just a more practical, especially for me. I am comfortable with saying I play the drums, even though I'm largely taught by Rock Band, which again is not surprising to anybody at this point. But I think is widely accepted as one of those instruments where these skills do carry over. You know, it's not like I'm going to tell you that I learned how to play guitar by playing Rock Band guitar, even though from Rock Band 3 on, and there certainly are other examples when it comes to Rocksmith and, you know, even just normal training tools that aren't considered games. There's a bunch of electronic tutorials and stuff like that. But where I'm at a disadvantage is that, in fact, if I could equate this to maybe something more real, where people maybe can't play music without the sheet music in front of them. That's maybe me. Like, I can't play the drums without a chart in front of me. I don't have any rudiments, for one, which are the rudimentary kind of skills that you develop, all the things that I feel like any drum teacher gives a student right out of the gate to help them develop their skills later on. Doesn't mean I can't still develop those, but I certainly haven't devoted any time to yet. So I don't have any rudiments, but also, I mean, I can't read drum music for one, but if Rock Band, if those charts are the music that we're talking about here, I just can't play, I can't improvise much without those things. So you'll just see me stare at the drums for a bit. But then when I can look at the Rock Band charts, I do all right, you know, I'm okay. I'm still getting used to the set. And again, for those at home, I'm interspersing some footage of me actually playing the thing here in the video, but I'm still getting used to this set, even though some of the skills do still cross over, obviously. So I've still got a ways to go, especially with this thing, but I do much better when I've got something in front of me. Hopefully that changes, you know, obviously that's part of the reason of buying the set, is kind of developing the talents outside. And honestly, the set is a dream. That thing is magic. With the headphones on, you really can't tell the difference. You're just immersed in it. Even though to everybody else, it actually looks and sounds like this. But if I put the music back in, I seem pretty cool. And that is actually, I did find a way to hook it up so that those are the actual sounds that I'm making and not just the actual drum track from that particular piece of music, which I did a few, but I'm probably using the Won't Get Fooled Again from The Who. And honestly, it's hard not to be playing it right now. So look for how I work that into future things when it comes to Ryan Runs here on the YouTube or podcasting. I think that's all I have for this week. Again, I'm going to Idaho. Whether or not I get some original stuff while I'm out there, who knows? But at the very least, I'll have plenty of work to do while I'm there. So continued shout outs to everybody that watches this ever, but also anybody that's been to the Patreon. I'm in the process of reworking a few things there. I want to redo the tiers, and this was kind of always the plan, but now I feel like I'm in a space where I can do it a little bit earlier than maybe I had planned to. But I want to make some of those rewards a little bit more substantial, and I want to do more shout outs and give more credits. So I think I'm going to move some things down a tier and see what we do and come up with some other things. So that's all in the future. I haven't thought that out all the way yet. So thank you, I think is what I'm trying to say, as always. So see you later.